Judy Messina because she's actually going to be our moderator today. And Judy is a fellow at the Center for an Urban Future. She's been a journalist, she's been an editor. Her beat has been in healthcare and economics and finance. And I have to say, even though it's not anywhere official, but it is official, she's a fellow Columbia alum. She comes from Wharton School as well as Columbia Journalism School. And I am so happy to have Judy Messina be our moderator. Judy will be introducing Deb Boulanger and James Rosseau.
Okay. Betty, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today. And as Betty said, I'm a journalist and I've written extensively about entrepreneurship by older founders. It's a growing and important trend, and not just for people in the second stage of their lives, but for the economy and for entrepreneurship in general. And I'm excited today to have with us two practitioners of this trend. Deb Boulanger, who is a former corporate product marketing manager and the founder of LaunchLab for women entrepreneurs, a learning and mentoring business for women, for training women entrepreneurs. We also have James Rosseau, Sr., who has also been a high-level corporate executive in banking, insurance, and legal services. Today, he is the CEO of the Corelink Solution, a nonprofit organization that he founded, which works to empower people to reach their potential. He works with young people, individuals, entrepreneurs, schools, businesses, has a curriculum for his program, has a radio program, and in January will launch a national platform, a channel on Sirius XM. First, and so thank you both for being with us. First, I'd ask you both to briefly describe your business, what it does, who are your customers, what are your goals? Deb, if you can start us off, that would be great.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Judy and Betty. It's such a pleasure to be here and having the conversation about stage 2 startups. So my company was a great do-over, which is really my story of leaving corporate in 2012 after leaving my senior product management and marketing position at Gartner. And what I noticed was my colleagues, who were also other women who were in the startup phase of their business, were really struggling with how to get traction with their big idea. And so I created something called the LaunchLab for women entrepreneurs, which was a culmination of my 20 years of experience in product development, management, and marketing in the corporate world, and applying those same principles to women making the leap from corporate to entrepreneur.
Okay, thank you. James?
Absolutely.
How did you get your idea? And,
yeah, my idea
well, first describe your business, please.
Sure. The Corelink Solution is focused on helping revitalize communities by helping individuals reach their potential. I always call it a head and heart mission. On the Corelink Solution side, we provide a curriculum to help people identify their purpose and walk through 6 steps to reach it. And then we also have another brand called Holy Culture, where we provide faith-based media, and those two things come together to hopefully help people build up their whole self. And to answer your question about our customers, we work with individuals, but we also work with institutions. One of the things we endeavored to do when we started a nonprofit was to be a self-sustaining nonprofit. So we also work with institutions, delivering our programs often through the HR organization to deliver it to their employees as well.
Thank you. Now, you both have had very successful corporate careers before starting your businesses. What advantages did that experience confer to you? What advantages do you have from being an older entrepreneur? And are there any disadvantages that came out of your corporate life or being an older entrepreneur? Deb, take it away.
Sounds great. So the advantage was I was used to developing products meaning packaged services based on what is the unmet need in the marketplace. And right now we're in the midst of this great resignation where all people, and particularly women, are making a choice. Do I stay or do I go? And there are numerous women who are choosing coaching or consulting as a career after corporate. So what I learned in the corporate world that's still so vitally important to me and all my clients in the Launch Lab is being able to have conversations with human beings and understand what is it that's missing in the world today, and what is a problem that needs solving, and what would make your solution different. So how do you stand out in a very crowded market of executive coaches, leadership coaches, life coaches, health coaches, consultants of all kinds, DEI, CEO advisors, and those that are focused on helping leaders now be better leaders in a hybrid workforce. So those are all needs that have recently emerged. And so what makes you different? What makes you stand out? And what's that position that you can occupy and be a category of one?
Yeah.
So your corporate experience also helped clue you in to the needs in the marketplace and enabled you to develop a product that responded to those needs.
Absolutely. It's about being a good listener and finding the opportunity.
Were there any disadvantages of corporate life, corporate training, corporate experience in trying to become an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I had a sales force. I had people who did marketing, who did branding, selling. I had a financial partner when I was running that line of business. So all of those roles, once you make the leap, you're not only CFO, you're CEO, you're CFO, you're CMO, you're Chief Revenue Officer. So all of the things, and also being an entrepreneur is very different. It's a different mindset than being a corporate employee. And so I think the fits and starts around technology that was mentioned before, how to sell in this new environment without a sales force, everything is online. So getting those tools and technologies and systems and processes in place. And really, I think one big takeaway I'd like everyone to take today is finding your lane and mastering one thing. I think when you asked about mistakes, too many people try to learn all the things, all the social media gadgets, create an online course, do it yourself, create an evergreen offering. And all those things can cost a lot of time, can cost a lot of money, may not bring you the returns. So find quickly what works with your ideal client audience and double down.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. James, it sounds like you're nodding in agreement, but let me ask you, you had a very successful corporate career at a very high level as a senior vice president in financial institutions and in a legal services firm. What advantages did that experience confer to you, give you in terms of starting your own business? And any disadvantages? I know that Deb just said she was used to having staff around her to do
Yeah.
a lot of the work, but of course no longer she became on her own when she became an entrepreneur. If you please.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both of those things in the different industries, financial industry as well as legal services, give you insight into how those ecosystems work. So help you navigate a little more quickly, I think, than not having those experiences. I think additionally having the network, right, the ability to pick up the phone and dial some folks and ask for help. And I think if you're not shy to ask for help, you'll be surprised how many people are willing to help, either out of the relationship you have, or two, they are astounded that you took the leap. And so to a certain extent, they're living vicariously through you, right? They want to see it happen because maybe they've been thinking about doing it as well. So they want to kind of see it. And then I think on the other side of things that may work against you is you're so used to not only the resources, but sometimes what I would call the thickness of the governance process that you are slowing yourself down. So as an example, we should always have a business case, of course, right? But the way the business case may work inside a larger organization is slow because of the toll gating functions and the hurdles that are there for different reasons in a large organization. When it's us, I'd say, we use the lean business canvas. We are extremely agile. We are doing experiments with customers by reaching out to the customer and doing the sale, right? And so on and so forth. So all of those things that may take weeks can literally take days. And we should be thinking about it that way.
Right. Deb said that part of her inspiration for the business came what she learned and knew from her experience in marketing. What about you? Where did your inspiration come from to start Corelink?
Yeah, a lot of mine came earlier in my childhood. I probably didn't know it then, but I grew up in an area where, unfortunately, a lot of people may have said, you're not going to make it out of here unless you're either a great athlete or a rap star, right? And then you begin to make it. And I was very young when I got promoted to senior vice president inside of JP Morgan Chase. And I remember being told I was the youngest senior vice president and very few Black senior vice presidents. And then you amass a lot of mentees, and I never said no. And my administrative assistant would say, "You don't have any time to take on all these folks." Oh no, you have to do it. And I took countless notes, and all those notes became a book I wrote. And along the way, I recall people saying, "You're special." And at one point, I said, special is not scalable. Special also, to me, implied that people didn't necessarily expect it. And I said, we should have systems that allow people to be successful, regardless of where they come from. And so when I got to Legal Shield, and I knew we were going to, I had several thousand salespeople I was responsible for that could be coming from all walks of life. We developed a system of success that I was responsible for. And that became the moniker I took with me when I exited to create and really spend more time in our nonprofit. How do I create a system of success for people, regardless of where they come from?
And so all that experience and your own life experience as a child and as a young man sort of pointed you in this direction, helping you know that this is something that could succeed because there was a need for it.
Absolutely.
I think you're saying, right. Let me, you've hinted at this, both of you, in your answer to previous questions, but let me ask you, what have you done right? And what would you do differently? Where are you starting the business today, now that you've got, years of experience and entrepreneurship under your belts?
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in here, and it has to do with one of the things that pops up for you once you leave your corporate job, and that is suddenly, with all the knowledge that you've accumulated, there can be some what we call stinking thinking of, I don't know what I'm doing, and that raises a lot of fear that maybe I don't know enough, or maybe I'm not good enough. At least this is what I hear from women in the Launch Lab. And that can impact how you price your services. It can impact how much exposure you get. So along with carving out a unique position in your market, people need to discover you. So you need to have a unique point of view and be seen and heard. And I think early on, and maybe this is this generation, we didn't grow up with a cell phone in our hands and doing selfies and reels. And right now, the currency of entrepreneurship is content. So I think, for any entrepreneur out there, one of the things that I've learned and maybe would have done differently is to just have the confidence, get through those uncomfortable spots of having increased exposure, especially if you're an introvert. So develop a couple of points of view that you can get out there, be a podcast host, be a podcast guest, speak on panels like this one, and make sure you're seen and heard so that you can be discovered.
And that's basically networking, I guess, more than networking perhaps, but that sounds like it's an essential part of making your way. And
I think networking, as James was saying too, early on is key, because there are people watching you. Sometimes your colleagues are your very first clients. They're your biggest supporters. And then you have to expand your ecosystem of connections. So yes, networking, and I belong to at least 2 or 3 really powerful networks where my ideal clients belong. And I also belong to some communities of other female entrepreneurs so that I get the support that I need. So creating that ecosystem of success where opportunities come to you is really important.
Yeah,
okay.
Those are good.
James,
I think,
your thoughts.
I think for me early on, I think some of the things, I got right was having the business plan and being wed to the why and the what and the who, right? So I would say, the purpose is so important, the why, and, why are we doing this? The what in terms of the product and services we want to deliver, being extremely clear about that and who it's for, but being flexible on how we're going to get it done. Understanding that we have to test and learn into that with intent. So setting up priorities in terms of, let's go do this, because we only know what we know, having been, coming from corporate, and you go into it, you go, this is exactly what we want to do. And then as you go into it and you start to understand the market, to Deb's point, we know we have a need, we know we have a customer, but now we're getting into the competitive space. We're trying to see these points of differentiation. Are we creating enough space in this, distance between our competitors? And okay, great. Now that we understand this, what changes do we need to make? And then once we understand that, let's now pour more fuel on it so we can juice it up and scale it, right? So that I feel really good about that. The second thing I feel good about is knowing myself. I think when you make these changes, a lot of times you read a lot of stories and always say, we see the tip of the iceberg on social media when people have made it, and we don't see what's happened underneath the water, right? We only show highlight reels. And so I always say to the person, know thyself before you make the change. For me, as an example, I'm a tremendously fiscal conservative person. I knew what I needed to have behind me to be comfortable to make the leap. Everyone's different. Some people only need a shoebox of money. They're happy. They're shoestring it. I'm not that person. So I knew what I needed to be comfortable so I don't have hives every night before I go to bed. So I did the right things to give me enough leeway so I wouldn't turn back and question myself every day. I'm real happy about that.
Right.
One of the things I would say I would do differently is two things. One, don't ever go cheap on people. I didn't do it in my corporate life. I did that once in this part of my journey and I regretted it, right? And right after I did it, I said, you would have never done that in the corporate life. Get the right people, put them in the right seat. Don't ever go cheap, period, right? Sometimes you say, we can, we need to, keep expenses back. You're better off than getting half of the right person part-time than putting the wrong person in the seat full-time. The second thing I would say too is never let yourself become isolated, particularly, type A. Sometimes we don't want to come out until we have something to show on the scoreboard, right? Then we want to come out and celebrate. You need to keep yourself out with a network of people, having discussions, sharing real time, even while you're working through the muck and mire of it all. Do not let yourself become isolated.
Okay. Talk about a little bit about pivoting. That's become a very common word, I think, today among startups and entrepreneurs. Did you pivot? How and why during the process of starting and building your companies? Deb, please.
Yes, I've pivoted at least twice. So full disclosure, when I hit burnout in the corporate world, it was really my health that was my number one priority. And I had a health coach. I hired her and she said, you know what, you'd be a great health coach. And I went and I got my health coach certification. So my very, very first program was called Feeding Your Freedom. And it was full mind, body, spirit reinvention, because that's where I was in my life. And it wasn't until my son went to college and I was an empty nester, a single mom, and I'm sitting around the table saying, what's next? That realization came to me about how many women were really struggling to make a living. And most were actually bootstrapping themselves right back into a corporate job because they burned through their savings. So just like James said before, you have to have your cushion, you have to have your tolerance. So then I said, oh my God, what have I been doing? I was a teacher. I've been a product launch executive. I've been a product marketing person. I've been in sales. These are the skills that are really needed. And then I pivoted. I tested it out with a few private clients. And once I got the formula and I saw where I'm repeating myself and coaching people in the same area over and over again, then I created a system and a framework called the LaunchLab for Women Entrepreneurs. And then once you find your lane, it's a matter of building upon that success and saying, well, what do my clients need next? When they're done with this stage, what comes next? And that's the way you build out an ecosystem of value with your ideal clients. And we call that the value ladder.
So the pivot is an opportunity as opposed to a reason to give up, right? Pivot is really, where do I go with this? Maybe there's another angle I can exploit.
Yeah,
James,
and too
sorry.
frequently, I think when you're brand new, you're bringing your new credential to the table as opposed to the full extent of your entire lifetime experience.
Right. James, can you comment on that? How you pivot, when and how?
You
not
trying to be duplicative. So I think I've had two pivots. I think, well, for two reasons rather. One, I think was when I came to the realization when we originally launched, I think I envisioned I would probably be delivering most of the in-room training. And I think I did several of them, and then had this, I had hired a program director who was working for me, who was very experienced. And, one day as we're talking through it, she said, so imagine, this starts scaling, and, we have, 5 or 6 of these deliver a week, and, this thing starts taking off. And then she started doing numbers. You really, and it 10 seconds, I cannot do that. Like, I do not want to be actually that person doing all in the room delivery. And it helped me really think about, the scalability of the organization, and actually where my highest and best use was going to be, and made me redo the program, create the trainer guides, and a facilitated version of this that we could distribute. And then I think the second time I made a pivot was something we were starting to build as an extension of the program. And quite honestly, I didn't find it to be fun. I think in this point of my life, for me in running the organization, it's got to be fun for me as well, just being honest.
Okay, good. That's tremendously good advice. We've got a couple of questions. Someone asks how to do networking if networking is something you dread. Is there a way to do it, even if you're uncomfortable, or to learn how to do it? Maybe better way to put it, how to learn how to do it with some level of comfort. Deb, I see you nodding, and James, you are too. Deb, please take it away.
Be the organizer. You don't have to be the new person in the room. You can create the room.
Okay. James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a person in love with it as well. So I go thinking about, I go with the end in mind. I go thinking through that I'm going to meet 1 or 2 people and have a deep conversation. So I try to block out that it's a room of 50 people and go with the thought that I'm going to meet 1 or 2 people. And that helps me kind of reduce some of that stress. Because I have the same thing. I'm not a big networker, but I think about meeting 1 or 2 people.
What about mentoring? Seeking out a mentor. How does one do that? How do you identify the right person? Is there a way to do that? Deb, your thoughts?
I think it's so important to be mentored because it's lonely. It is a very lonely journey to be CEO of your own business. So surrounding yourself not only with peers, but with people who have achieved a higher level of what you want to achieve, or who fill a gap in your knowledge or understanding, or who can help you develop more of the CEO mindset, or can help you, like James was talking about, with the scalability of your business. So I take great pleasure every year of assessing where I am in my business and where I'm going next and who can help me get there. So mentorship is so super important.
Agreed.
And how do you, I'm sorry, James, I just want to ask her one more. And how did you approach those mentors or potential mentors?
I usually discover them. So I'm a big consumer of talks, conferences like this one. And if someone resonates with me, I reach out and say, I'd like to explore what working with you could look like.
Right. And usually you get a yes, I'd be pleased to.
Yeah. Response. No one's ever turned me down.
That's good. Okay. James, please, you talked a little bit before about being a mentor. Yes. In your corporate life. And so you'd been through you knew the ropes. Talk about finding mentorship as an entrepreneur when you first started out. And
yeah, same here.
Continuing.
I mean, between using my current, the existing network I had and expressing to people the need I have and having people make soft introductions, that's been extremely helpful. Or as I've made a shift in the business and found a gap of experience, reaching out to people. It's surprising to me sometimes how receptive people are when you reach out on LinkedIn and say, I know we both know this person. I'm looking to better understand what you do in this area, how receptive people are to have a conversation. And I try to do the same, just pay it forward. I had somebody recently reach out to me from Hawaii, looking to get into executive coaching, said, can I get 20 minutes to understand? I know you've done some and you've made this transition. Would love to understand how it works. I spent 20 minutes and did it. So I do it knowing that I asked the same, and I found people to be highly receptive. The second thing I'd also mention is that's worked extremely well for me. I've been in the mastermind now for 2 years with 3 other folks. That is so helpful. Being with a group of people who are taking a similar journey in your vocation or in this kind of, in the spirit of entrepreneurship or whatever it is and talking with those folks once a month and sharing the highs and the lows and the inflection points, whatever the case may be, has been really fulfilling for me.
Good. A form of networking. I'm interested that you reached out to people on LinkedIn, not just sort of in not an anonymous way, but people you didn't know or hadn't more face to face with, and they were responsive. That's very encouraging. Let me ask you a last question, unless anyone has more questions, Q&A to put on in the Q&A line. All right, here's one, and then I have a last one. How do you structure the cold mentor experience? 20-minute on and offs, repeated conversations, best structure models. James, we just talked about a cold mentor experience, right? Perhaps you could respond to that, and then Deb, I'll ask you as well.
Yeah, and that one I mentioned as an example was very specific. He was looking for really to kind of understand my journey of going from corporate into that field, what I had done. He wanted to share with me how he was thinking about doing it and getting some feedback. And we agreed to maybe touch base in 90 days as he's trying to work through his transition. And that's where we've left it thus far. We haven't set up ongoing beyond that yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Deb, the cold call type of mentorship, your thoughts and any advice there?
Yeah, I think my thoughts might be a little bit different. So I'd like to talk about the paid mentorship side of it, is joining a mastermind program that maybe is led by a coach. So if you're looking to hit your first 6 figures, maybe you're in a group of people who are all working to achieve their first 6-figure goal. And then when you're past that, you're mid 6 figures, going to 7 figures and scaling up, then you want to be with a group of people and a mentor that can help you get there. And I think it's so super important financially, because we're asking people to invest in us and invest in our missions and our business in exchange for the value that we provide, that we also invest in mentors and get that value that they can provide. I think there's so much value that a warm connection mentor can give you. And then when you're actually paying someone and they're on call, it's a different type of experience.
Okay. Betty, if we have time, I'm just going to ask Deb and James one last thing. And 3, I mean, you've told us a lot about what you did, how you did it, things you might not do again, things you would do if you had another go at the startup phase of your businesses. Let me ask you to refine in 3 steps, 3 things that someone in your position or someone starting out in your position to start a company, whether they've been coming out of corporate life or just in midlife, just to decide to do something new, something they love, and for which, as James, you say, they have purpose. What 3 things would you advise someone to do if they're getting started on this journey?
I'll start. Find the gap.
Deb,
Yeah, find the gap in the market. What's the problem that no one's solving or no one's solving well? Create a solution that people want to buy, and be seen and heard based on your unique point of view on that issue.
Got it. Thank you.
Love
And
it.
James.
So I'll try to go far afield so I don't be quickly with Deb. Be clear about the purpose. People love to follow a compelling vision. So get your purpose, vision, and mission clear. 2, be ready to lead people and be ready to invest in them both. And so attaching to their vision, hopefully help your vision connect to, what they want to do, and hopefully they can see themselves inside of it, and be ready to, help them with their development plans and all those good things of being a great leader. And then I always say the 3rd P is process. Be ready to nail your business model, your operating model, and your governance model, and make sure everyone that's working with you understand them abundantly clearly, because once you help them understand them, they can really be empowered to operate inside your organization.
All right, thank you. Great advice from 2 who have been through it and are successful and marching on to greater success. Thank you both.